So the British Empire runs the Illuminati. And when the Queen of England was alive, she ran the Illuminati. They don't run the world, they just run the Illuminati. The people who really run the world are the Vatican. They really run the world. They secretly without trying to put the people who run the world, the Romans. Remember how, in history they say that the Roman Empire was the strongest? Well, they always been. They run the world, but they secretly hide themselves. And it's kind of, it's not hard for me to explain, but hopefully people will have the understanding. The Americans, the original Americans, like the ones that came over and they went to battle with the British Empire, those were Romans. They just changed their name to Americas to hide themselves. So Americans are like the actual name. It comes from, like, the Romans named them Americans to change their name. That's just what it is. The original northern part of America, the Republicans were Romans. All of the Republicans are Romans, and they come from the Roman bloodline. Or if you don't come from that Roman bloodline, you're definitely going to be appointed by the Romans. And the British Empire was the Confederates down south. So they're both hiding themselves from rulership. But the Illuminati, I have to say, the Illuminati, this is where it started, okay? I have to go back into time for this. The Illuminati started with the British Empire going down to Egypt, which was in America, and finding the practices of witchcraft that the Egyptians was practicing. The Egyptians have always been practicing witchcraft. Remember in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, when Moses did his miracles, and then the Egyptians came out and was like, man, please, that's nothing. And they started doing the same miracles. That was witchcraft. Okay? The Egyptians knew how to do witchcraft. The British Empire got their hands on that witchcraft, and that's where you get the pyramids and all that, and they got the structures, and they practice it on high levels, and they use it in war too to win wars. Okay, so let's talk about this. So let's go up to the top of the pyramid. The all-seeing eye is Lucifer. Now, Lucifer rules the entire world, but he controls Republicans and Democrats. He controls Romans, and he controls the British Empire. All right. So the Romans are hiding themselves under the Vatican. All right. And he controls that too. Now, this is where the Matrix goes over our head, but it's in 1776. Once they got their hands on the witchcraft, they developed the Illuminati in 1776. That's when the Constitution was written, and all that nonsense that they do over there. Now, I just want to let you know that there are 13 families of the Illuminati underneath the world monarch. The world monarch, first of all, was with the Queen. Okay, they're a monarchy. The Crown Council of 13 was the 13 witchcraft bloodline families that rule the world. The 13 bloodline families. And what they're doing is pretty much copying off the Israelites, because the Israelites had 13 tribes, and then the tribe of Dan was kicked out for practicing witchcraft and doing all kinds of weird stuff. And so it went down to 12 tribes. Okay. So the witchcraft families, you're actually born into those families. They do incest and they do intermarrying so they can keep the bloodline pure. And they do all kinds of weird, wicked stuff. And up there in that area, there are vampires and stuff that you just can't imagine, okay? So the Committee of 300, the world's richest, powerful, you talk about subfamilies. Those are people who rule all across the world, different bloodlines, and they control lots of things. They control banks and different things like that. So let's go down to the think tanks. We're going to talk about the Trilateral Commission, the Council of Foreign Relations, the United Nations, which is all that. That's what's going to be the Book of Revelation with the beast, the 10 kings giving their power into the beast. The United Nations, you're connecting nations together. And then they're talking about the round table. So if you ever watched the movie John Wick, this is like the structure of what John Wick was dealing with. And then you have the Bilderberg group. They plan different events, and they take different world events, and they make, like, World Trade Center was orchestrated by the Bilderberg group. And they do a little weird stuff in the Bohemian Grove. And the reason why it's over there in the Bohemian Grove is because that's where the Egyptians was practicing witchcraft over there. So the Club of Rome, the Club of Rome has their hands dipped in there too, and you go over to the international affairs with the, I can't really see exactly what that is because it's a little blurry, but those people are part of the satanic, demonic groups also. And the World Financial Control, you got to look at it like this. And I'm going to explain it all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm going to talk about the veil that has been put over our heads. So the world banks, let's just talk about the tax revenue, because in 1913 was when everybody in America had to pay taxes. It's just basically the Romans, not the Romans, I'm sorry, the British Empire, because this structure is really Britain. This is Britain's structure. Like, all of this is Britain's structure, and I'm going to get down to it. The only part about it is that it says the Club of Rome. They're just grabbing a couple members to do a couple jobs. But this is all British structure. The Tax Revenue Service was placed in there, and the Republicans actually do not like the tax revenue. Because everybody's taxed, and everybody has to play by the game, their rules. So that's where the IRS comes in, and they collect your taxes or whatever. And that was never supposed to happen. In 1913, they did that from what do you call it, the District of Columbia or whatever, with the Federal Reserve. So I'm just letting you guys know that the Federal Reserve controls the taxes in America. So let's move down to the World Resource Control, because we're talking about the gas pump, the stations, the rising of gas prices, and we're also talking about the car industry, because they work hand in hand. There's a lot of people that created cars that run on water, and those people usually shot and killed or poisoned or whatever, because if you look in that corporations area, the cars that are being made throughout the world and in different countries or whatever, and over there over here in America, they're ran on gas, and you'll be knocking off the gas companies by creating cars that run on water, which there's a lot of cars that run on water. Now, right now, you got electric cars or whatever that run on electric, but the person that controls it is part of this whole system. So therefore, that person's not going to get in trouble because they're converting over to create infrastructure on electric cars. That person is Elon Musk and a lot of his cohorts. So they're not going to get in trouble because they have permission from the Illuminati, which is at the top of the British Empire, to do these type of things. And I'm just letting you know that if somebody underneath at the very bottom with the population workers create anything that'll go against this system, they'll get shot and killed. Just letting you guys know that. So let's go down to the World Population Control. We're talking about government here. The governments, they're all satanic. Like, I don't understand why people just don't understand this. For some reason, people are manipulated by people with suits and ties. It's like, if you ever want to rob a bank, just wear a suit and tie. Nobody would suspect you of ever robbing a bank. Just carry a briefcase in there and demand the money, and you'll just, it's an easy way of just carrying a bag and a mask, because the thing is that people trust people that wear suits and ties, like the governments, and they trust police officers. And so, because they're in uniform. So wearing a uniform It's part of the spell that they have casted on us. They've did something with uniforms. And I'm not trying to be funny here. It's just that the human population is stupid. If you want to get away with a crime, you want to get away with lying and manipulation, wear a uniform that has a crease in it, or wear suits and ties, and that would manipulate 90%, 95% of the population to thinking that you're a sincere person. So the governments control people because they wear suits and ties. They tell you that they're going to do something for you, and then you vote for them because you like his tie, and then therefore they control you. So the intelligence community, the military, the police, the courts, the prisons, are underneath this. Now, let's go back to the intelligence community, like the NSA or DARPA. DARPA is actually a secret intelligence agency that controls you through like nanobites or whatever. Like they'll actually create like birds, little fake birds that have cameras, and they'll fly them in front of your house and they'll monitor you. And so there's also spy groups out there that will monitor your house. Your TVs monitor you. Okay? Religion is part of this also. They create religion, false gods, entities, and they throw religion at you, and lots of people follow them and they go to hell when they die. Okay? So the military, the police, the courts, the prisons, the schools, you realize the schools are on the same line as the prisons, because you get like 8 hours of school time away from your family and you're not really learning anything. Because let's just check this out. Everything that I just explained, did you ever learn that in school? No. So what are they teaching you? They're teaching you science. They're teaching you the Big Bang Theory, right? They're teaching you that God did not create the earth. And they're teaching you fake, false history. So then the only thing you're really learning is how to read and math. Those are the only things that's actually worthy or good or whatever, I guess. But everything else is just complete BS. And so schools just want to captivate your mind and take you away from your family. They don't teach church. They don't teach God. They don't teach Christ. They don't teach anything that's important in the Bible. They don't teach that inside of school. If they did, they've taken it out. They teach homosexuality and they teach transgender and how to be a woman if you're a man, and how to be a man if you're a woman. And they just like pretty much polluted the whole school industry, the school systems. The military, they don't even know what they're fighting for. The military is confused also. The police force, first of all, there's witches and warlocks in the military. The police force, there's Freemasons, witches, warlocks. The courts, the judges are Freemasons. And the prisons, the prison guards are just there to make sure that people stay locked up so they can continue to receive more workers to plant inside of companies for less wages. The chain gang that still exists in the South. And also these prisoners, once they go to a work release program, they actually get paid less, or while they're in prison, they actually get put on buses, taken to facilities where they make car parts and different things like that for a lot cheaper than actually paying somebody, $25 an hour to make these parts. The prisoners would take $2 an hour. So that's a big industry. It's always been. And so let's go down to, let's look at Disney, Viacom, the media. Something else that's not even mentioned on here, that we talk about the music industry and Hollywood and different stuff like that. So in 1948, the British Empire split up. Even before 1948, we're talking about 20 years prior, they actually started cutting Palestine in half. That land of Israel never existed because it's not a real land. It was Palestine. And so the British Empire cut it in half through trickery, and they put the fake Jews over there in 1948. And once the Jews got over there, they placed a fake state of Israel, and it gave them power and authority and witchcraft. And then the Jews, the really rich ones, created, which they're not Jews, by the way. I'm just letting you guys know they're Britons. They're from the British Empire, and they just call themselves Jews, okay? And since they're from that region, they just get tanned up, and then you think that they're God's chosen people, and they're not. Like, I don't understand why people think they're God's chosen people. Maybe because they're white and everybody had a spell cast on them to think that white was better. So now there's a spell cast upon people to think that white people are God's chosen people. So the Jews, the fake Jews, the British Empire, they in 1948 they also just put their own people inside of that land. And I understand Hitler did the things that he did. Well, Hitler knew that those fake Jews were going to take over the world, and they did, and so he was trying to stop it. So that's the reason why. He didn't do it because there's a curse on those people. He did it because he knew that they were going to do exactly what they're doing right now, like creating Hollywood and different stuff like that. So Hollywood was created in 1948, and it was full of witchcraft. Walt Disney was part of it, and the whole thing was to cast a spell on the American people, or all throughout the world, was to cast a spell on everybody through visualization, all the way into the end where, Christ returns. They were just going to keep doing it. And they don't know how long it is to Christ returns, but they just know that technology will get better and they can keep manipulating people. So that's what it is. As far as the spells is concerned, we have in 1776, the witches have put a big spell over the whole entire U.S. They just went around to multiple cities, creating the hugest spell that you ever can imagine, nationwide. And the American people are born into the spell, and that is the Matrix. The Matrix is that you're being placed inside of a system that was never placed by God. It was placed by the devil. So that goes to the population of workers, which is all the human beings that's down the bottom, that's manipulated. College. Yeah, I'm going to college. I'm getting a degree. If you want to know the meaning of life, if you want to know what your purpose is, the meaning of life is to follow God. Your purpose is to follow God. There's a heaven, there's a hell, there's a God, there's Christ, there's angels, there's the devil, there's fallen angels, there's demons, there's wicked, there's witchcraft, there's miracles. That is the true world that we're being kept from. The disciples broke out of the Matrix. When Christ was doing all the healing and different stuff like that, they knew it wasn't just physical. They knew it was spiritual too. This world is spiritual. And the Illuminati, which is at the top, they know about the spiritual stuff. That's what they turn into vampires. They drink blood. They kill children. They get power from it. There are werewolves out there. The Vatican turns into werewolves. It's happening. We're being kept from that. The Matrix is that, okay, I'm going to get up and work my 9 to 5, and I'm going to save my money and pay the electric bill that empowers the corporations that has us enslaved. So over and over and over again, are we just going to allow this Matrix to have the veil over our head? So the thing is this, to break, eventually this Matrix will be broken. And when the Matrix is broken, it's because the witchcraft is destroyed and these corporations are destroyed, and then we'll be free. But when we are free, we would think that we're actually worse. When the Egyptians had the Israelites in captivity and God released the Israelites out of captivity, they went into the desert and they didn't have the extravagant food that they used to have. They had to eat bread. Remember, they was on a run, so they couldn't even put leaven in the bread because they had to hurry up and leave. They couldn't wait, so they had to take it the way it was. The Passover, that's what do you think it is? So bread and water, and they didn't have all the glamorous things that they used to have. So they wanted to go back to Egypt. They're like, no, we want to go back. It's like, you want to go back into slavery? So when all these corporations are destroyed, and let me explain how it's going to be destroyed. Okay, so the Lord is going to destroy the demons. He's going to put them in the abyss. when that happens, the witches can't do witchcraft. So therefore, the spell is going to be lifted off of us, and we'll be able to see. A lot of people will have superpowers. And so the believers will have superpowers. Not none of these little fake phony people. I'm talking about the people that God chose, the chosen people, they'll have superpowers. And so the elite won't have them anymore. The only people with the power would be the people that practice worship Christ. That was serious. And so when these elite don't have the power no more, it goes to the believers. But it also goes to the people who are the real original Jews who the curse was broken off from. And then they have the curse is going to be broken because there ain't going to be no witches to curse. So the curse is going to be broken off of the Israelites, and the Israelites are going to be able to rise up, take control. So those corporations are going to go under. These people are going to run in their bunkers. They're going to run in the cliffs of the rocks, just like the book of Revelation reveals, because they're going to be hiding from Christ when he returns. So the infrastructure of the matrix is going to be decimated. And so a lot of people are going to be free, but by that time, you ain't going to be able to run inside your local supermarket. You ain't going to be able to run inside your local clothing store or your cell phone store or your Walmarts or whatever else you like, because that's going to be gone and done. Everything's going to be knocked back to the 1800s. And you're going to have to live like that. That's like those movies that they be making, the end of the world type movies. Okay? The Book of Eli or like The Walking Dead, where they be showing people, walk around like zombies and different stuff like that. That's how the world's going to be in certain parts of America. And it's going to be eventually cleaned up by the Israelites. Are going to fix up the destroyed areas. The Israelites are builders. The Lord, once the curse is broken, the Israelites are going to build up and build back the infrastructure that God wants. You're not going to have satanic temples and churches. So that is, the matrix is us going to school, us going to college, us going to fraternities, us going to church, us paying bills, us not knowing what the truth, us celebrating Christmas and pagan holidays. That's the matrix. Outside of the matrix, the real world is that we have to follow Christ, and we have to fast, and we have to pray, and that there's angels and there's miracles, and that we pray for the things that we need. We pray for the things that we want, and the Lord will give it to us if we're obedient. And then that right there, we break out of the matrix, we break out of the curses and the spells. We get to see the gang stalking. We get to see how this world is ran by the elites. The elites, they do all kinds of stuff that we don't get to see. They're traveling in spaceships. They're traveling on submarines. They're traveling on $500 million yachts. They're eating non-GMO foods. They have cloning labs so they could transfer their soul into the clone so they don't ever die. They have that. They have underground bunkers. The spiritual part of things, when you escape the matrix, you see the spiritual things happening right in front of you. And I'm letting you guys know that this is what it is.